Calvin Emmanuel, an energy expert and economist, is in the studios to look at the issues. And from Port Harcourt to have Billy Gildes Harry, the President Petroleum Products Retail Outlets Owners Association of Nigeria, also joining us. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Let me start from here in the studio with Calvin. Calvin, Pengassen's statement is already hitting the polity, and Dangote has accused Pengassen of recklessness, lawlessness, regards, does not have regards to constituted authority. What are your thoughts here?
Thank you very much for having me. It's always a privilege to be here on Newsnight. Well, it was shocking when I saw the statements credited to Pengassen. And the reason why it's shocking is because usually when issues come up, I like to look at the law. I like to situate it within the context of the law. There's a Trade Union Act, and then there's a Trade Disputes Act that governs and guides the operations of trade unions in Nigeria. If you look at sections 9 of the Trade Union Act, and look at sections 41, 1A and 1B of the Trade Disputes Act, it says that energy supply constitutes essential services. And in matters of essential services, the federal government of Nigeria reserves the rights to actually intervene and supersede every other laid down process if there's going to be a disruption of energy services without recourse to a 15-day notice that should be given by any striking workers for picketing. If you look at the same Trade Unions Act, sections 4 to 6 of the Trade Disputes Act, it says there's a laid down procedure for picketing. The laid down procedure says that if a dispute arises, the Minister of Labor is supposed to get a notice within 7 days. And if the minister is unable to resolve the dispute within 7 days, she's supposed to appoint what they call a conciliator, a mediator. And that conciliator or mediator is supposed to report within 14 days of taking on that role. If they fail to resolve it at conciliation, it's supposed to proceed to what they call an industrial arbitration panel, an IAP. If they fail to resolve it at the IAP, it's supposed to be referred to the National Industrial Courts. It's only when the National Industrial Court has adjudicated over the matter that the union has the legal authority to actually issue another 7-day warning notice before it strikes. So the question I have is, when Nupeng, for example, went and took trucks to block the entrance to a private business, that Dangote pledged his shares. Dangote pledged his shares in Dangote Cement as a collateral to get loan to build the refinery that NNPC failed to do for 30 years. When they went to put trucks at its refinery gates to block the entrance and exit for crude oil to come in or products to go out, did they follow this process? No. Are they threatening Nigeria's national security? Yes. The question I should ask, sir, what is the DSS and NIA doing about it? What's the DIA doing about it? Because any threat to essential services like energy supply and security is a threat to Nigeria's national security.
We'll come back to that, Calvin. Let's go to Port Harcourt, where Billy Gildes Harry, the chairman or president of Petroleum Retail Outlets, is. Thank you for joining us. Why has Pengassen Nupeng become such a cankerworm in Nigeria's energy security? Why would they arbitrarily ask their members to shut or not supply a private concern, crude oil and gas? Taking the law too far?
Good evening, Nigerians. Your question is, why has Nupeng and Pengassen taken laws into their hands? I've listened to your guest in the studio, and I'm happy that we have laws that guide Nigeria and Nigerians also, and which means that every one of us is not above the law. So when anyone ultraverse, any other Nigerian can act in similar way, waiting for the same action. In Petrol, we have asked for the government's intervention in all of this. And this is almost like 2 months our advocacy on this subject has been on. Our position is simple. The plans that are made by one particular business called Dangote Petroleum and Petrochemical Refinery has decided to get into a forward integrated business that's going to create issues in the system. And to our vindication, we can see the events playing out all by Dangote to be able to, get the facts of what we're saying more clearly. I do not think that Nupeng and Pengassin are overacting themselves. I believe they are acting in ways and means that should be able to protect the industry's civil union. I believe that what my colleague there has reeled out clearly states the law. And if there's the law, then Dangote refinery and her promoters should obey the law. The law simply says that there's going to be protection for workers. And if the unions are working on that, I think that in your program tonight, Nupeng and Pengassin should have been here to answer for themselves. But from our point of view, they have not overacted, and we need to call attention to the fact that the issue of Pengassin entering into this scene is a brand new issue, because there was nothing difficult for also Dangote refinery to have followed the process of finding out why its senior staff are now becoming members of Pengassin, instead of locking them out as the news has portrayed, and get the air of Pengassin. So Pengassin is only reacting to protecting their staff,
Harry,
their members.
If you say Pengassin is reacting to the development in Dangote's refinery, a private entity which has decided to reorganize its company, what is the business of Pengassin here? Is that how unionism is supposed, to be, carried out? When we know, Kelvin, that union members of Pengassin and Nupeng, like the Pengassin president, has a presidential suite here at the Hilton, permanent one, right, Kelvin?
Mr. Godot, please hold on. Let me answer this.
I've thrown this question to Kevin. Let him speak, please.
It's interesting because if you go back in time, you see that even Bayo Ojulari, the new GCU of NNPC, has had Pengassin threaten him to shut down NNPC because of reorganization of the entity. So are we going to say that Bayo is paying workers at NNPC low wages because he came in and said we need to restructure the human resources of NNPC to be able to achieve the KPIs that the president has set for him? Dangote is reorganizing the organization. It's his company. He borrowed money to build a refinery, and he's drawn down his debts by very good management of the refinery to $3.8 billion. He still owes $3.8 billion. It's a private business. He has a right to hire and fire, and he has followed the Trade Union Act, Sections 9, 1 and 2. He's followed the ILO Convention, 87, the ILO Convention, 97 on collective bargaining and the freedom of joining unions. His position has always been consistent. Pengassin and Nupeng cannot compel the members of his company and the employees of his company to join the union if they decide not to join the union. So this desperation by Pengassin and Nupeng to have them join their union, if they say they don't want to join their union, is fishy. And it shows clearly that Pengassin and Nupeng are proxies for the marketers who realize that the game is up and that the market is transiting to a new era of refining. So this talk about forward integration, Dangote is going into distribution, has been illegal. It doesn't hold water because the CNG trucks he brought into Nigeria, 4,000 trucks, first batch, is energy compliant, it emits less carbon, right? It's efficient to transport. It saves about 40% of transportation costs because it uses compressed natural gas. Each of those trucks has 6 workers, which means he's employing 24,000 new Nigerians that are earning 3 to 4 times what Pengassin is paying and Nupeng is paying their drivers. So I don't understand the argument of Pengassin, and it's completely out of place. It's completely out of place for Pengassin to order for its members to shut down the valves of 5 to 6 different companies that supply gas to Dangote urea plants that at full capacity utilization brings in $2.2 billion in export earnings for Nigeria and has helped Nigeria to improve its balance of payment position and also expand its GDP. Dangote has been consequential to the expansion of Nigeria's GDP from $188 billion to $253 billion in the last 1 year. In the last 1 year that the refinery has been operational, you've not had anything like strike, you've not had anything like fuel queues, you've not had anything like sabotage. We've been witnesses to bad petrol being imported into Nigeria. NMDPRA as a regulator, as stated in the PIA, does not even have something as common as a lab to test for gasoline testing standards to ensure that the products that are brought into Nigeria aligns with the PIA on sulfur, on distillation, on density, on flash point, on cloud points. So what are we talking about?
What are the likely fallouts of the directives of Pengassin on the entire energy sector, particularly if you underscore it or you try to reconcile it with NEPA 11? That's almost 40 years ago during the Babangida administration when they shut down the entire then NEPA facilities and the whole nation was plunged into darkness.
Look, the implication of this, the Dangote produces 44 million of liters of PMS on a daily basis, which is higher than Nigeria's actual daily consumption, because I don't believe the 49.6 million liters that NMDPRA claims that Nigeria consumes, if it doesn't have empirical evidence or framework to show, right? He produces about 26 million liters of diesel. He does about 14 million liters of Jet A1. In the last 3 weeks, Dangote, for the first time in the history of Nigeria, as a country, exported refined petroleum products of 30 to 6 ppm sulfur to the United States of America. Dangote is one of the biggest suppliers of Jet A1 to Europe today. So if you stop the supply of crude that he buys in US dollar, by the way, Dangote pays $3.50 premium to buy Nigerian grade crude. For Bonga crude that he buys, for example, he pays a premium of $3.50 because NUPRC boss, he was here earlier on the show and he was talking about domestic crude supply obligations and Naira-based crude swap. Dangote is not getting crude allocation in Naira. Okay, he pays a premium to buy Nigerian crude because the operators give the crude to third-party traders to sell to him. So if you stop the supply of crude, what's going to happen is that he's going to have to reorganize and go to the export to the foreign exchange to the foreign markets to buy crude into Nigeria, for which he spends $9 million every month for shipping costs alone and the cost of payments to MP and IMASA to import crude into Nigeria, which means that the FX that he sells from exporting things like petrol, Jet A1, diesel, carbon black, residual fuel oil, polypropylene crystals, urea, he uses that same FX, most of it, to buy crude back to Nigeria. It's an anomaly that after 57 years of Nigeria having an oil and gas industry, in 2025, Dangote is having to import 10 million barrels of crude oil monthly and then export the refined petroleum products because there's been a constituted gang up against him. And then marketers are importing substandard petroleum products into Nigeria and then exporting Nigerian crude abroad. Nigeria is a case of, if they tell you Nigeria and you understand it the first time, they didn't explain it well to you. It doesn't make any sense. And I don't know what the president is doing. Why the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Petroleum, right, Mr. President has not made any comments on this, because this is a threat to Nigeria's national security.
Okay, let's go back to Port Harcourt now. You were going to respond, to the excesses ruled out by Calvin Year and the squandernemia that the executives of Pengassin and Nupeng are known for.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, but I think you need to be, I do know that Arise is a first-class news media that's developing across the globe. And I think it's very important that when you give your platform to any one person to speak, that they are speaking what is true and what will be reflective of Arise News's, reputation.
Harry, you have the platform, so you give your own considered opinion. You have the platform already.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to talk, but I just need us to be able to understand exactly where we're going, because it's not enough to speak a lot of English. It will be very good to get facts that will be able to help us. Now, let us take the issues at stake. Nupeng and Pengasin have capacity, knowledge, and ability to speak for themselves. And so, in my capacity as national president of Petrol, I will not be speaking to defend any of these organizations because they know exactly what is the issue. But from our perspective, because we are the last mile in the industry, we are the ones that will deliver petroleum product refined to the market woman, to you, the journalists, to the executives, to the judiciary, and to everyone. So I want to thank Mr. Kumolafe for the interventionist and realistic advice he has given to industry players. I also want to appreciate Rep. Ogochinri, who has also called for valuable restraints in ensuring that matters are effectively resolved. That is the position of Petrol. These conversations we're having should not be one of I say, she say, act, not act. We have rules in this business. And if you are only speaking from the point of reading analysis of what the law says in PIA or what you find from AI, it will be difficult for you to understand exactly the reality. The reality here is that there is an attempt by a corporate organization to consolidate the power of refining, storing, distributing, and eventually owning retail outlets. And that will be so much power consolidated in the hand of one company that will now even answer to the question of energy security. And energy is a major issue, even in times of war.
Mr. Gilly Harris, Dangote has no plans to own retail stations.
Yes.
He has no plans to own retail stations. He's in the
Please,
ministry, he said that he's in the ministry. He has no plans to own retail stations.
I'm not addressing you, Mr. Kelvin. Mr. Kelvin, I'm not addressing you. You don't own a station. I don't know if you have any facility that will be working in the downstream. But you are speaking on behalf of a refiner. So focus on your PR job, and then let us get
Mr. Gilly Harris, you were the same person.
You
were the same person that said that Port Harcourt refinery was selling PMS to Nigerians. Remember, you were the same person. You were on record. Arise TV can play a record
Kevin,
of your
please,
interview.
I'm not
where
addressing
you
you, please.
That Port Harcourt refinery was
you
working and was producing. Port Harcourt refinery, NNPC spent $1.45 billion of Nigeria's hard-earned money and wasted the money. And where is that refinery today? It's under lock and key. Mr. Gilly Harris, Petrol lacks the moral integrity to talk about this industry. And you're talking about laws.
Excuse me,
any law that is not situated between the PIA, it's not law that should be obeyed by the players in the industry, because the government is the one that makes the law. It's not Petrol that makes the law. It's not Moman that makes the law. It's not Dapman that makes the law. It's not Nupeng that makes the law. It's not Pengasin that makes the law. The government makes the law. The PIA supersedes any other law that marketers have decided within themselves operates or governs the industry.
All right, gentlemen, I think
excuse me,
let me come in here.
Please,
sorry, Gilly Harris, let me come in here. It's not, we shouldn't come to fisticuff here. It's to exchange ideas so that those in authority and the people on the street will understand. But my question is, why is the Nigerian government selling crude oil to Dangote through third parties and thereby increasing the cost of production? And sometimes we'll have, a yo-yo pricing situation. Today is up, today is down, because of the vagaries of dollars in the international markets. Harry?
Is that question for me or for somebody else?
No, it's for you, Harry.
Okay, please tell your guests in the studio to be disciplined.
Harry, I
so
have
we can address
intervened
this issue
in that
properly.
area. I have intervened, all right? So
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much.
Answer the question.
Now let's yeah, there is no time, to my knowledge, in the last few days, in the last few weeks, that the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, led by the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has decided not to sell crude oil to any refinery in Nigeria. I have asked the question, and we do not just base our interventions on just hearsays or suppositions. They're empirical, and we have values to be able to make Nigeria a better place. There is no time the government has made that decision, to my knowledge. And I have asked questions, and there was no positive response to that. The government has never at any time in the last few days said, to my knowledge, that crude oil is no longer going to be sold. So, but getting back to the old question that I was answering, it's very important that we understand that the industry is willing to be very supportive to Dangote refineries. And we want to do that with a simple collaborative method of stakeholders working with Dangote. Whether they are Meman or Dapman or Nupeng or Nogasa or Pengasin or NATO or Petrol, we are willing to work with Dangote to ensure that he's successful.
All right, thank you very much, Gilly Harris. Dear Kelvin, maybe you're going to take the final shots here. I remember sometime during the Yar'Adua administration, or before the coming of Yar'Adua administration, the refineries were actually sold to two private concerns in Nigeria, Dangote and I think Otedola and the rest. But shortly after, that decision was reversed. Has that been a big shortfall in the oil industry development in this country?
Okay, very good question you asked. And quickly, in 2006, the Bureau of Public Enterprise, Federal Executive Council approved a memo for BP to, privatize and sell the refineries off, because President Obasanjo had, invited Shell to come back, that built the first refinery in Nigeria with British Petroleum, and they refused. And they gave him reasons why they don't want to come back, And Kaduna refinery that has an installed capacity of 110,000 barrels per day. It has two CDUs, one 60,000, another 50,000. The one of 60,000 can take heavy crude, only Venezuelan crude. 50,000 can take light Nigerian grade crude. Okay? It was sold to Chinese National Petroleum Corporation, CNPC, for $100 million. Right? The government later came back and said that the bid of CNPC was too low. So CNPC left. They went and they built a refinery in Niger Republic, close to the Agadez oil fields, right? And recently they had some issues with the Nigerian government. But they built a refinery as a substitute for what they wanted to do in Nigeria. Port Harcourt and Warri was sold to Blue Star Consortium, and that was reversed because Nupeng and Pengasin went to late President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, God bless his soul, and told him that in the interest of national security and that he should not sell it to a private entity, the government should keep it. Well, since that time until now, they've spent $18 billion in maintenance of those refineries, and none of them are working. They're under lock and key. What they were doing in November and December last year, January, they claim was working. The show they put on, party they put on, and deceived Mr. President, right, was them blending naphtha condensates with C5 resins. A pipeline, that 40-kilometer pipeline that should take crude from Escravos through Chernobyl Creek to Warri, was even not in operation. So how would you get crude? They spent $20.8 million in rehabilitating a jetty in Okrika. If you see the EPC sheet, about 460 pages, you see the inflation when you benchmark it to the cost of these things in other parts of the world. They cannot account for $2.9 billion that was borrowed through a forward sale agreement. In the intervening period, Nigeria has lost more than 2 trillion naira in subsidy payments where you cannot match bridging allowances with daily consumption volumes. Nigeria has lost another $6.8 billion in loans that they claim was owed to international traders who do a vendor financing program through crude oil swap for the domestic crude intervention stock. All these are questions that the National Assembly is supposed to sit down and investigate. What happened to these monies? These monies are huge monies. You have a budget of 54 trillion. Mr. President cannot fund the budget. He has to borrow about 15.8 trillion naira to fund the budget. And here you have monies that are going missing. And nobody is accounting for it. So the coming of Dangote refinery was because he said, okay, if the government will not sell these refineries, we'll go ahead and build. They went ahead and built. He spent 10 years investing in these refineries. He pledged his shares in Dangote Cement as a collateral to borrow money to invest in this refinery. He has been able to draw down that debt from $15 billion down to $3.8 billion today. Dangote is a national asset that should be commended. And Mr. President should designate Dangote refinery as a critical national infrastructure. Because in the history of Nigeria, nobody has had the audacity, nobody has had the courage to break with the norm and invest in backward integration for the refining of petroleum products and crude oil in Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Kelvin. He's an energy expert. Well, we've been speaking to Kelvin, Emmanuel, and Billy Gilds Harry from Port Harcourt. Thanks very much for joining us on Newsnight.